Hi friends, welcome. If this is your first time visiting, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Thank you so much for stopping in. And if this is your first time visiting, please hit the subscribe button. I'd love to have you as a subby friend. And if you like the video, give it a big thumbs up. So this is going to be a very different video. And you guys, I am so sorry. I don't feel good today. I have been feeling terrible all day long, but it was important that I did this video today. If I was going to do it, I needed to do it today. A couple reasons for that. So the video that I'm going to be doing is why I became a nurse. So I've had a lot of people ask me, and it is quite a tough story, and it's honestly only been maybe 10 years since I've really been telling the story. And since I've been telling it though, I have realized that it's such an important story and it's an important message. So I have gotten to where I tell it when the time is right and, as often as I can. Well, actually not that often, but when it comes up, I do tell it. So the reason why it's important that I do it today, sorry, my alarm went off as I was talking, because like I said, I haven't been feeling good. So I was laying down and I'd set my alarm to make sure I woke up to do this. But anyway, so today is 37 years since, it happened, and we're coming to the end of Nurses Week, and it's also Mental Health Awareness Month. So I just really thought that this would be probably the best time to tell the story. So the first thing I'm going to say is, although I am going to get the brevity of the situation across, being as gentle as I possibly can, and every story has its silver linings and powerful moments to it. But I do just want to let you know ahead of time that it's not necessarily the most pleasant story in the world. So just to make you aware in case, maybe you don't want to hear it. Okay? So with that being said, like I said, I've been asked a lot why I became a nurse. And for me, this is not only about why I became a nurse, but it's also so much of what makes me as a person. And, they say that when you get to a place that you can tell a story without crying, that you've healed. And I feel like I'm there. Sometimes I still get a little teary-eyed, but I feel like I've definitely healed. So 37 years ago, I was 15, and I have an older brother. His name is Michael, and he passed away at his own doing. So prior to the incident, he had been in a motor vehicle accident that was very bad. The person that hit him was an impaired driver, and it threw him out of the car. Back at that time, seatbelts weren't a thing. Some cars didn't even have seatbelts in them. And needless to say, he suffered a tremendous traumatic brain injury. It resulted in many things needing to be done that night, and him being in the hospital for upwards of a year. He had just recently turned 16 and got his driver's license. So he was a new driver when this happened. And then when he came home from the hospital, he had all the effects of a traumatic brain injury. And, you know, today I'm able to recognize how challenging, you know, that was for him. He was 17 years old now and already had all the things that a 17-year-old, you know, goes through as far as, you know, thoughts and hormones and, you know, challenges. And then you put on top of that a traumatic brain injury that left him having seizures pretty much every day. And he was on high doses of seizure controlling medication. And, you know, back then they weren't as sophisticated or as many options as there are today. And the option that he had, you know, certainly came along with its own side effects that probably didn't help the situation. So I can just imagine how challenging things were for him every day. And, you know, we were just happy that he was alive and he was home, and didn't really think about all of that other stuff that goes along with what he had been through. So one day, today, that many years ago, I was 15 and I was out playing with my friends, and actually we were roller skating outside. And I just had this really strange feeling come over me. And my brother and I, like, he was my best friend. We fought like cats and dogs. He would do anything for me, and I loved him tremendously. So I had this really just weird feeling come over me, and I ran home on my skates. So I guess I skated home as quickly as I could, and I just ran through the front door. And it's sort of how I ended up in the situation that I did, because I got to his room and opened the door just as the incident happened. And he chose to use a firearm, so it was not a pretty sight by any means. And a few things with it, I of course was in shock. I remember falling down on the floor first, sort of like on top. And then back in that day, we had like cordless phones, like that was the cool thing. And he had a cordless phone in his room, and I took the cordless phone and I went out of his room and shut the door, and I called 911 3 different times. And each time I told them what happened, and I asked for someone different. So I called asking for police, fire truck, and ambulance. And the lady kept telling me not to hang up, and I would say I have to call somebody else and hang up. And on the third call, she was like, do not hang up. And I kind of think I stayed on the phone. I don't remember a whole lot from that initial like moment. I do remember that I had other family in the house. My mom was there and my little brothers. But how I ended up there was because of, like I said, I just like had this weird feeling and rushed into the house. And I was holding the door closed on the phone and kind of like fighting with my mom. I wouldn't let her go in, which I'm glad of, because, you know, I mean, that's not how you need to see your child. And then of course, you know, even when the rescue team came, apparently, from what I was told, I was fighting with them too and telling them that, you know, they couldn't go in there because I didn't want them to have to see that it wasn't pretty and I didn't feel like they should see it. It wouldn't be good for them. So anyways, long story short, you know, of course there wasn't anything that they could do for my brother, but they were like, you know, what do we do with this little kid? You know, she's 15 years old, look what she just witnessed. And, you know, so they packed me up and they took me to the hospital. And when they took me to the hospital, I had a nurse. And, you know, this is the thing. You know, we talk about, you know, there's all these cliches, right? And there are all of these quotes and, you know, whatever. But, you know, some of them are very profound, and some of them are more profound than we even realize, right? So, like, you know, how many times have you heard the quote that, you know, they may not remember your name or things about you, but they will always remember how you made them feel, right? So I will tell you, this nurse, I don't remember her name. I don't remember what she looks like. I do remember things that she said though. But more than anything, I remember how she made me feel to this day. To this day, I can remember how she made me feel. And, you know, at that moment, I mean, nobody else could make me feel okay. I mean, for my mom and for my dad, it was their son, right? And so they're feeling their own kind of way and dealing with their own parts of everything. And then, you know, my brothers, they were little, they were young, and honestly, they just sort of got like scooted to the side, you know, oh, they're little, they won't remember. Well, they absolutely did. And, you know, and I think that it was so hard on them because nobody talked to them about it. You know, it's just one day their brother's not there, you know? So, but anyways, in that moment, like this person, a stranger, an absolute stranger, but a nurse, right? And this person is the one that made me feel cared about. Like all these years later, I remember how she made me feel. And so she came in the room, and I remember saying to her, you know, I know that you have really sick people and there's nothing wrong with me, and I didn't want to take her time and I just wanted to go home. And she sat down on the bed beside me. I'll never forget. She like kicked off her shoes, which is so funny that that's the thing I remember. She kicked off her shoes and she put her feet up on the bed. And she said, darling, there is nothing in the world more important to me right now than you. And we talked for a long time, and she told me she was actually, you know, not supposed to work that day. And usually when they call her to come in extra, she says no, but she chose to come in that day. It also turns out that she had taken care of my brother because it was the same hospital that he came to after his accident. And she had also been through the same thing before. So it was just like all of those things aligned up for like the right situation. And she kept telling me, she said, you know, you are not going to let this affect your life negatively. You are not going to let this ruin your life. You're going to find ways to understand it. And as soon as you can, you're going to talk about it. And you're going to talk about it as much as you can, and you are going to find the thing that turns this into, I don't want to say like a good thing, but you're gonna find like the reason for yourself out of it. And we talked forever. I couldn't even tell you how long it was, but it felt like forever. And you know, we talked about things like you know, what happens when you have things like this happen, and you know how you might feel and some of the things that might happen. And you know, she you know, like told me different things to do, you know, different ways to cope and that sort of stuff. And you know, anytime I would have a nightmare, I always thought about her. Like, I would think about her, and I would think about, this is what she told me to do, and I would do what she told me to do, and then I would feel better. I mean, at that moment, she probably could have told me to eat chicken noodle soup, and you know, it would have worked. But it was the time that she put, right? So when the moment came for me to decide what I was going to do for the rest of my life, I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to be an ED nurse, and I wanted to do for somebody what she did for me. And when I left the hospital that day, all I could remember is, you know, I just kept thinking about how kind she was, how kind she was. And, you know, I think that I've always been a nice person. I hope, but that was the moment that it really like stuck in my brain, how important it is to be kind, to just be kind no matter what, to just be kind to everybody. And it's something that has always stayed with me. It is something that will never be lost. And no matter what happens, it is the piece that I take back into how I live my life. And it's why for me, like, being kind to people and being understanding and forgiving and trying to be good to people is so important. Like, it's important. So, you know, when I first got out of high school, I didn't have the money, you know, to go to college. So I went in the Army knowing that I would go to nursing school. And then, you know, after that, I went to nursing school, and here I am, right? So about 20 years ago, I got divorced, and I moved back to Florida. And when I moved back to Florida, it had only, at that time, it had only been a couple years that I had stopped having nightmares. So I had bad dreams for a really long time. And by that point, it had only been a couple years, and I didn't talk about what happened much. I mean, my husband at the time knew about it, and people, friends only knew about it if they were my friend during that time. So it wasn't something that I really talked about. You know, I would talk to my dog all the time. All the time I would talk to my dog. But when I came back, I took a per diem job at the emergency department where it happened. And I really wanted to find that nurse and tell her, you know, what an important part she played in my life. So I only worked there for a couple months though, because when I started working back there, I, for a short period of time, started having bad dreams again. And I think also because I had started talking about it and trying to find this nurse. So it was just a little bit tough. Like today, I could go there today and work there and not be bothered by it. But 20 years ago, I was still very bothered by it. So there was one nurse that worked there, that had worked there during that time, but she remembered actually the incident. She remembered me, and but she couldn't remember who the nurse was, or really even who worked there at the time, because at that point it was still like 17 years later. So anyways, I guess not 17 years later. Let's see, I would have been, well, 15 years later it was. Yeah, it was 15 years later. So, but anyways, so, gosh, I guess I've been in Florida longer than I was thinking. Or back in Florida. Anyways, so, back then, like, it wasn't like computer databases of like schedule. You can just go into a computer and say, yo, give me the schedule of this time. We didn't use computers and stuff, So anyways, I ended up leaving that job because I couldn't take it. But what I realized, though, as I left, was that I wasn't going to look for her anymore, because in my brain, I just started to realize that, that's that thing that keeps me reminded and keeps me going, right? It's the fact that she doesn't know. She doesn't know how she made me feel, right? And as a nurse to this day, I remind myself all the time that we don't always get the luxury and the privilege of knowing the aftermath. We don't always get the luxury of knowing how our care affected another person, but we have the responsibility to remember that the things that we do and the things that we say do affect other people, right? And how we treat people can change the trajectory of their life in small circumstance and in big circumstance, right? So I think that it's just such an important message. And I mean, listen, she may not even remember me. I have taken care of so many people in my career, and I guarantee you that there are those that I probably should remember that I don't. And that's okay, right? Is we just have to make sure that we are treating everybody that comes in front of us with kindness and with dignity. And every person that I have helped in my career and my life has been linked to her. So not only all of her years as an emergency nurse and the people that she helped herself, but everybody that's linked to me is also linked to her. So I think that it is such an important message and something that is so important to think about. And, for me, it is my why. And, through the years, I've gained multiple other whys, but it is always my original why. And it is why I love what I do. And I truly care about people. So I'm going to give you like a little second part to this if you're still here. I mean, listen, this is getting long and you may have left a long time ago. I understand that. But, you know, I'm going to say this because it makes me feel better. You know, one of the odd things about being in the emergency department, and I was thinking about this when I was thinking about this story, you know, the emergency department is one of those places where you get people during that hard, traumatic time. And you see, you know, people at their worst moments, and, you know, and you take care of it quickly and they move on to where they need to go. So generally, as people are getting better, a lot of times they don't even remember their moment in the emergency department. So it's not that often that people will come back to the emergency department to say, hey, you know, thank you, this is how I'm doing, you know, whatever, and you get to know like how things are going for them, right? And you know, sometimes it takes a lot out of you because, you know, you're giving to people so much of yourself in so many hard circumstances. So much of yourself in so many hard circumstances. So this is where YouTube comes in for me. So if you know or not, you know, I started doing YouTube actually as an assignment for a leadership class I was taking. And I stayed doing it because I really liked it. And I have met, like, I have a friend that I consider like such a dear friend. And her name is Heidi. She is one of the first people I met on YouTube. And we have visited and we talk and text, and I just like really love her. I consider her such a dear friend. And then I have you know, Miss Christina from Canada. You know, like, she sent me a package, and it's so weird because I take care of people. People don't take care of me. Like, that's just the way it is. And like, it came at the end of like a really tough week, and it was so nice. Like, it was the first time in my life like I had somebody just like sent me a package just because. Like, are you kidding? So thank you. That was so important to me. And you know, but with YouTube, it's so nice because even though like it's just crafting, it's really nice for me to feel like you're doing something for people that is sort of in a happy space. Because, you know, my entire career has been doing things for people during really tough times, but it just, I don't know, it feels different, and it feels really good to do things for people like that are like a happy thing. Crafting is happy and it's fun. And you know, if I can help somebody figure out like a problem with something they're trying to do at crafting, like, it makes me really happy, and it feels good, and it feels different, and it's given me such a nice balance to the other part of my life. So for that, I thank you so very much. And listen, I hope that I didn't drone on too long, but I wish everybody a very happy and blessed weekend, and happy Nurses Week to all of my fellow nurses out there. And listen, remember, be kind, and your words matter. See you later, friends.